basically doing the final rust repair on the Nightmare. I've been working on and off on this thing for approximately 8 or 9 months. I haven't been working on it full time. And what we got left is this package tray that I just cut out, and you kind of saw the Nightmare on that. Somebody cut giant holes in it. The owner really wasn't concerned about it, but being my friend Pete, I want to do it right. And I want to make sure that that's all factory original. We got a little bit of rust in this corner here, and then there's some right here that I got to cut this out and replace that section, which hopefully, cross our fingers, we'll be able to get this section and this section off of our parts car in the back. Let's take a look at what I've done and go from there.
Welcome to D.I.Y. Automotive School with my friend Pete and Minnie, the body shop girl. It's everything you need to know about cars and more.
So for the last couple days, well actually the last day that I worked on it, I went ahead and refixed this rust right here. Now this piece here, there's a vent that goes right here that sucks in fresh air, which circulates the air around. And what happens is moisture and debris get caught from the outside going in, and then of course it dumps down here in the quarter panel. There's supposed to be a drain plug or a drain hole down there. Of course those get clogged up and those cause rust. And then another thing that happens is inside this, it comes like this, and then there's like this little gutter right here, and you can see that spot weld that I spot welded onto it. But there's a gutter that rolls around, and then it would fall down in here, and that gutter was rotted out, and then underneath that, the back side of this where the window rolls up, that was rotted out as well. And you can watch all that on a video that I made where you can actually take old body panels that you didn't use from new body panels. And what I'm saying, this floor section right here is a section that I didn't use, but I keep this kind of stuff because of all these contours and all these angles and everything going on here, that if you really concentrate on it, and I'm even talking about something like this right here for an example that we can possibly fabricate into using right here where this rust is. So it's very important that when you get done with your floor panels and your quarter panels and all your other stuff, always keep a good stockpile of this waste of material that's got all these different angles and structures and forms in them. And you can see right here, this is where I cut this section out because it was almost a mirror image to what we needed right here that's stamped out that would lead into our vent being recessed. Now you're not going to see this. This is all going to be covered with material. It's going to be covered with insulation. But when you get that vent in there, that has to recess down in there. So this worked out really good by cutting this section of this floor out and then hammer and dolling it to make it work. Now you can see why this is sitting here. Look at this round circle right here. This is the floor, but on the other hand, look right here. Do you see what's going on in the trunk? We got some sort of, it looks like the bottom of a tin can action going on, and it looks like this is seam sealed in there. I don't think it's welded, but you can see it's got this lip right here, but it doesn't have this lip. But what it does have is this design right here. Now these pieces are non-purchasable. You can't find them, and if you try to find a car, parts car, they're going to be rotted and rusted, okay? It's a no-go deal, and you would have to make that piece if you had the $10 million worth of equipment to do it, or possibly do it like we're doing it, and find pieces and structures that we can use to replace it with. So that's why this floor and keeping these old pieces around and plastic totes, where I'm not saying keep everything, just keep an ample supply, or go to your local paint and body repair shop and they throw them away. Ask them if you can have them, and they'll be probably glad to give them to you. So the last thing we did, we went ahead and fixed this inside corner here for him. And now what I'm doing is I'm fixing this package tray, but then up underneath this panel here, I'm going to go ahead and get that out of there. You can see where we replaced and fixed spare tire holder, not just in one spot, but this section here was rotted out, and then over here, this section was rotted out. And we still got to repair the tail light panel where I already started working on it, and here's that piece right here while we're talking. This piece is this piece right here. And you can kind of see how it is, but if you look at it, you can see the recessed. Okay, but that's the piece right there that was in here, and yeah, it's done deal now. But so I can't do anything to the tail light panel, nor can I go ahead and replace that quarter panel while the car is on the rotisserie, due to the fact that the rotisserie machine itself is in the way of doing any work at all, and the car has got to be on the ground to finish that work. We went ahead and finished our brace work. Our bracing is now done. Our unibody is now all in structure, all lined up. Everything's been tram gauged, and it is all square and even. The next thing that we will do when I am done with the rust on this thing, and I'm talking about all the rust on the floor, all the little meticulous rust that you saw, fixing this right here as well. The next thing that I will do is I will have this car completely sandblasted, and when I say sandblasted, they will be removing all of this spray-on seam sealer, undercoating, whatever you want to call it, all the way down to the bare metal. Here's some seam sealer. We just made a video on brush on seam sealer, and you can see how they applied this in the seams. This was all brushed on at the factory. So brush on seam sealer is a necessity when you're restoring a car, but I think that Mercedes-Benz went way too far. They took their undercoating to the extreme, and by looking at this car, and here's a good example, look at the inside of this fender well. That's probably about 1/8 of an inch thick, and it didn't do nothing. It didn't do any good for anything, and the car still rotted and rusted out. So I think they went to the extreme. I think their engineer department needs to fire everybody that they got, because they're overbuilding these cars. And if you actually underbuild the car and let the car breathe, the car won't rust out. But who am I to tell them that? So this is the panel that we took out of the parts car, and I just randomly cut it off. Now the holes that you're looking at is where the spot welds are underneath here. Once again, this car is overbuilt. So you got all these frame structures everywhere on the car, and underneath here there is a section that comes around like this, and then this panel here is spot welded all the way around it with, well, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 spot welds holding the center of this panel. And that, you can only imagine how many spot welds come down here and all the way across here and everywhere else. There's probably, just to hold this one panel on, because it ends right here. All right, this one actually folds over. This one has a lip right here, and you can see where it's spot welded on. But just to hold this panel, there's probably 100 spot welds just on this one fucking situation, which is ridiculous. And then, besides that, all this crisscross bracing and bracing that's going like this. Well, let's just go ahead and we'll take a look at it. And if you look up inside there, you can see what I'm talking about. Not just bracing, but look at this solid piece of metal that is just surrounded. And inside this piece, there are braces and frame structures and skeletons inside it holding this together so it won't collapse. I think it's just absurd and way, way overkill on building a car. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mount this panel on here. Now, how am I going to line that up? We got a factory hole right here. There's also a factory hole here. And then if you look right here, there's a little hole in this area, and there's also one right here. Let me explain something about a car to you. Let me go ahead and explain the theory. Anything that you have on the right-hand side, and we're talking major stuff here. We're not talking like a little nut and a bolt that might be on the left side that's not on the right. But anything that is on the right side of the car is going to be almost 100% identical to what's on the left side of the car. I mean, right side, left, yeah. So what I'm saying is they're both going to be almost identically the same, especially when it comes to something like this. And one of the theories of doing this is not to make it a mirror image, but when the car gets in a crash, or if you need to line up panels as they're building it, all these points of reference, these holes that you see right here. Look at this hole here, this hole here. You got this hole here, this hole here, this hole here, and this hole here. All these holes and all these reference points are measuring points that they use to line the vehicle up when they're building it. And of course, if it ever gets in a wreck, that would be a good point to use a tram gauge or a tape measure to also do the same thing. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and since we only have two hands here today, Minnie the body shop girl isn't with us right now, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this all by yourself. That's a very important situation. Let me get that out of the way first. That's a very, very important situation, is learning how to do it by yourself. And that's what we're here for today. We're learning how to do it by ourselves, and we're getting her done and doing it right. But this is a good lesson for everybody to figure out, hey, I don't need my wife to come out here and hold this for me. Oh, I don't need to call my buddy and wait 6 hours and sit on my ass and watch TV till he decides to come over to help me out. What we're going to do that's going to give us the help, we're going to use a drill. We're going to go ahead and use an air drill because that's what I got. So if you're watching this and saying, well, I don't have an air drill, so I got to go get another pair of hands. Okay, you're acting like a dumbass. Go get your electric cord, get your electric drill out, and get your drill. Also, we're going to go ahead and use a nut driver bit in our drill. But why are we doing that, my friend Pete? I don't understand. What's the big deal? I need somebody to help me. No, you don't. What you do need is get your head out of your ass. And let me show you why. Very simple, very easy. We're going to take this panel that I cut out, and look what we got. We got a hole. Okay, oh my God, look at this big hole. Can you see it? We're going to line those holes up. Just like that. All right, look at that. Lines up perfect. We're going to make sure that our little oblong holes are lined up. And look what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and hold that between my legs. I'm going to go ahead and take my screw like this and stick it in there because it's a magnetic tip, is what we got. And then I am going to go ahead and randomly screw that on there. All right, it's only going to take 1 or 2 screws, maybe 4 at the most. I'm sorry, my rotisserie moved, so I'm going to pull it back toward me. But then I'm going to go ahead and line that up, and I'm going to go like this. And then while we're at it, we'll go ahead and put one over here in the middle to hold it. Okay, just like that. Okay, my rotisserie rolled. There we go. I just used my hand to do that, by the way, by myself. All right. And then once we got that in place where we actually want it, we're going to go ahead and take this tool. This is called a poker tool. Do you see the end of that? If you push on your finger hard enough, it'll poke you. Probably draw a little bit of blood, so watch out. We definitely don't want anybody to get fucking hurt over here. I'm gonna walk up behind the vehicle, or should I say the trunk, or the sail panel, or no, I'm sorry, package tray. I'm gonna take my scriber, and I'm gonna reach behind here, and I'm gonna scribe that square hole out. Watch what happens when I do this. Hang on a minute, it's gonna take a second. Okay, are we back? Good. What I just did, I went ahead and scribed the inside of that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove this panel off by myself with a little bit of help. And what that help's going to be is this right here. There you go. Because we don't have anybody helping us today. We're here alone, hollering and screaming and getting loud. And basically being a jackass. All right, let's see what happened here. Look what we got. Look what we got as I bring the camera close. You can see right here that we got a nice square line. Does anybody know why I used a scribe tool and not a magic marker? Now, I could have used a ballpoint pen. Let me tell you why. I'm going to go ahead and explain it to you. In theory, if I take my magic marker and draw a line, I'm going to get a nice straight line out of that. Did everybody see that? There's a nice straight line. But also in theory, if I take my scribe tool and I scribe it and I'm holding it up against something, I'm going to be able to trace that opening and get a nice line. If you look right there. The difference between using this and this are two reasons. One, this is a fine-tooth point. When you are scribing that piece out, it is going to ride the opening of the hole perfect. And it's going to be right up next to it. And you're going to leave a very faint line of what's going on and how that hole needs to be cut out. If you use a magic marker, I'll go ahead and hold it up here. When you draw that, it is going to be a big fat line. It will not ride precisely on the hole that you just scribed, and it will leave a fatter mark, okay, where you will be confused once you take it out of what side of the line should I cut on. Should I cut it in the middle? Should I be on this side of the line and save? Or should I be right on the line on the inside and cut it out? One more factor falls in to why this tool right here is a very important tool to have in your toolbox. And it comes down to this right here. Now you might not be using a cutting wheel of a 4.5-inch grinder. You might not be using a cutting wheel from a die grinder, but you are going to use some type of cutting apparatus to remove the piece you need out of this piece of metal. If you take a measuring tape and you measure the thickness of that cutting wheel, you have to subtract that from the line that you just drew on. So if I take my cutting wheel and the line that I want is on the inside of this, then I have to figure out where I'm going to cut. But then on the other hand, using a marker is not going to give you a precise line because it is a soft type of a marker. It's soft. That means you can push on it and pull away, and it's going to leave different variances. And it's also thicker, which is going to confuse you when you start to cut that out. So you have to minus that thickness off the middle of your line that you made. When I'm using this, I know that by taking my cutting wheel and taking the inside edge, because I want to cut on the outside of the line, but if I'm looking at this, this would be the inside. I'm going to put that right on the outside of the line, and I'll be able to cut it very precisely, and it will come out perfect. Now, we might be using a jigsaw on this of some size. Sometimes it's an air saw. You deduct the thickness of the blade to comprehend and to compromise where you want that to end up. Are we making sense here, class? Kids, students of all types, sizes, and ages. I hope so. Now, on this particular item, we would not want to use this to cut it out, because we're trying to be really precise to get this cut out so we don't have to mess with it. So what I do most of the time, and I gotta find it, here it is, right here. Let me bring that over there. I take yellow tape, or whatever tape we got handy, as long as it's automotive paint and body tape. That's all we want to use in our surroundings, because that's what we work on. And what I do is I tape right on the inside of this line. And when I say inside, I'm talking the inside of that line. I'm sorry, I take that back. See, I'm getting confused here. Which is the inside and which is the outside? Which part do I want to keep and which part don't I want to keep? That's why it's real important to figure out and know what exactly you are doing. What I want to do, I want to go on the outside of the line. And when I say on the outside, I want to do it just a hair off. And it would be possibly a little thicker than our cutting wheel. And to do that, I'm going to put my tape there and I'm going to measure that. And that's showing that I'm almost the double thickness of my cutting blade. So we're going to go ahead and follow our line. Now we're just going to follow that down, and we're going to keep the same width all the way. Because when you're cutting and sparks are flying, you will not be able to see that fine line that you just got done scribing on your metal. Okay, one more thing I want to talk about is freehand cutting. When we started this, you saw me freehand cut that hole out. I didn't measure anything. So when you look at it, you can see that the hole is not 100 accurately precise square. You can see that this line over here is crooked, and then if we look up here, you can see how it goes straight, and then there's like a hump in it right there. That's another reason it's very important to use a scribe tool. Let me get that tool. Where's it at? Scribe tool. And to always have one of these in your toolbox handy for this type of situation. Now, they do make a white chalk. It's a metal chalk that a lot of people will use. I don't like using those because I would rather use a ballpoint pen. Ballpoint pens will work just as good as a scriber tool, but sometimes in some situations, and that's most, when you use a ballpoint pen on automotives, okay, it's very hard for that ballpoint pen to actually leave an ink mark all the way around. Now, I can go ahead and use my plasma cutter on this and cut it out, but we don't want to do that because we're trying to save time here and energy. And when I say that, by using a plasma cutter, it's going to give you a pretty good cut if you're good at it, but it's going to be sloppy and you'll have to grind the edges. So by the time you clean everything up and grind all the edges down, it probably won't fit and it'll be too small for the hole. And if you're going to go ahead and use a jigsaw, make sure you use an orbital dual action jigsaw, because that will give you a quicker and more accurate cut than using a single action jigsaw. what we have done, we have precisely cut out the piece that we need, and I also left a hairline more onto it, and the reason for that is so I can custom fit it in there using my Rolo-Lock grinder. This is called a Rolo-Lock grinder. The reason I call it a Rolo-Lock is because these pads come off and go on. They lock onto this pad right here. This is a high-speed mini grinder that I have had for 25, 30 years, and I use it for only Rolo-Lock pads just like that. So what I can do now is I go over there. I left just a little bit. I'm talking just a hairline of more on there, and let me show you what I'm talking about. I don't know if you can see that or not, but you can see right there, there's still a little bit left, a little bit of meat that I didn't take off, because I want to be able to clean these edges up and not take too much off. Using a cutting wheel is going to leave a lot of burrs and trash on it, so we got to take our Rolo-Lock anyway and clean it off. And usually by the time you get done doing what I'm doing now, you have literally brought it down to the scribe line that you made. All right, now is the time to see how our panel is going to fit in our hole before we do any custom fitting, welding, and grinding to it at all. So here's our hole right here. Now there's one thing I did forget, and this is another reason I leave just a little bit of hairline around the piece that I cut, is I have to clean this off too. You can see right there, okay? So what I do is I take my and I just lightly hit that. And then I'm going to come back in here and normally by the time you do all that, that little hairline of meat that you left on there usually will fit in there. So we're going to take our piece and then we're going to go ahead and fit it in, and it looks like it's backwards. Okay, I got it inside out and upside down. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and fit it in there. And now you can see, just by looking at it, I got to do just a little bit of trimming down in this area here. But other than that, it looks like maybe a little trimming on this side. So what I'll do, and you can see how it fits really nice right here. So I'm going to hold it like this, right where it goes, and you can see I still got to do a little bit of trim work, basically almost all the way around it. I'm going to line that edge up right now. It fits in there pretty good right there. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to hold it just like that, and then I'm going to come back here and I'll scribe it one more time, and by doing that we can see that I left a very, very thin line of metal still on it, so I got to get rid of that. Now the way that I'll do that, and we're almost ready to end this video because I think y'all get the picture up there. I'm going to use this tool right here to remove the meat right here. And I'll do that at a very slow rate until it starts fitting in here the way that I want it. Okay? And then, once we get done, this will be a nice, fitted, butted situation where we'll be able to weld that in and be done with it. This is Pete, my friend Pete, your friend Pete. Lining body panels up, making them work, and using the most important tool in my toolbox, and it's called, here it is right here, a scribe tool. Keep one of these in your toolbox. You're always going to need it. It's the best tool to make patch panels with that you want to be precise. I still got about 30-40 minutes of fitting this in the hole to make it work. So let me get to work, and you have a great day. And I hope you learned something, that this tool right here can be a lifesaver when lives need to be saved and people need to work alone.
Thanks for watching D.I.Y. Automotive School. Classes don't stop till you know everything.
My God, son of a bitch, what the hell's going on there? Sandwich left straight out of Miami, son of a bitch, and I love every minute of it. Don't you forget about D.I.Y. Auto School with all the solutions that we can give you. D.I.Y. Auto School. My friend Pete's showing you how to do it right, do it tight, and do it the way that it should be done. D.I.Y. Auto School. My name's Sammy Salami, straight out of Miami. Well, my God, son of a bitch, I've told you about 76 times now. D.I.Y. Auto School. Be there or be square. I'm not saying it again. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. I want to go. I got a lot of editing to do. This is Sammy Salami, straight out of Miami. Loving every minute of it. See you over at D.I.Y. Auto School. YouTube channel, D.I.Y. Auto School, you cocksuckers.